Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
It's the 25th of March 2013. A very good evening to you and welcome to News at 9. Coming to you live from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. And I'm Joel Outscoon with tonight's headlines. Starting off with resolution on Sri Lanka in Geneva amended. Pakistan supports the point of view that Sri Lanka should be assisted in its internal process. A statement by the Pakistan High Commissioner in Sri Lanka. Deforestation in the Panila Singaraja rainforest. Malaysian Airlines accepts that flight MH370 was lost in the South Indian Ocean. And sports headlines this evening. Indian Supreme Court says that Srinivasan must step down as BCCI chief for fair play IPL probe. Let's now cross over to our Newsfirst studios for a comprehensive news bulletin.
Well, thank you very much, Joel. A very good evening to you. I'm Shahin Jurong Party.
And I'm Nicola D'Zoiza. Let's start off with our top story for today. The police have arrested a man who confirmed that he had given forged currency notes to Dulanjali Premadasa. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohana says that a resident from Kotte has been taken into custody over the depositing of forged currency notes at a private bank in Cinnamon Gardens, Colombo. The money had been deposited by late President Ranasinghe Premadasa's daughter, Dulanjali Jayakodi, who was given the money by the suspect in custody as a repayment of a loan. The suspect has since confirmed to police that he had in fact given 2 million rupees to Dulanjali Jayakodi.
The third draft of the resolution on Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council has been circulated among delegates in Geneva, calling on the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to undertake a comprehensive investigation into alleged human rights violations in Sri Lanka. The third draft of the resolution also calls on the Sri Lankan government to conduct an independent and credible investigation into alleged violations of international law.
The third draft of the resolution that was circulated in Geneva yesterday reaffirms that all Sri Lankans, quote unquote, are entitled to the full enjoyment of their human rights regardless of religion, belief or ethnicity in a peaceful and unified land. As in the previous draft, the third draft too expresses alarm at the quote unquote significant surge in attacks against members of religious minority groups in Sri Lanka, including Hindus, Muslims and Christians. While recalling the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights' conclusion that national mechanisms have consistently failed to establish the truth and achieve justice, the draft resolution calls upon the government of Sri Lanka to hold an independent and credible investigation, quote, to hold accountable those responsible for such violations, to end continuing incidents of human rights violations and abuses in Sri Lanka, and to implement the recommendations made in the reports of the Office of the High Commissioner, unquote. The draft resolution further urges the Sri Lankan government to investigate all alleged attacks by individuals and groups on journalists, human rights defenders, members of religious minority groups and other members of civil society. Furthermore, the draft resolution requests the Office of the High Commissioner to undertake, rather than lead as in the previous draft, a comprehensive independent investigation into alleged serious violations and abuses of human rights and related crimes by both parties in Sri Lanka, quote, during the period covered by the Lessons Learnt and Reconciliation Commission, and establish facts and circumstances of such alleged violations and of the crimes perpetrated with a view to avoiding impunity and ensuring accountability with assistance from relevant experts and special procedures, unquote.
Minister of External Affairs Professor G.L. Pieris reiterates that a sustainable solution to the national problem can only originate from within the country. The minister made these remarks during discussions held in Kandy today. On Saturday, the chief prelates of the Askeri and Malwatu chapters of the CM sect, in a letter addressed to the President, asked that they be kept informed of developments with regard to the resolution on Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. The chief prelates had requests through their letter that they be granted an opportunity to hold discussions with Minister G.L. Pieris and Mahinda Samarasinghe on the subject. Accordingly, Minister of External Affairs Professor G.L. Pieris met with members of the Mahasangha led by the chief prelates in Kandy yesterday to discuss the situation in Geneva. The chief prelates of the Askeri and Malwatu chapters of the CM sect, the chief prelate of the Ramanya chapter and the chairman of the Amarapura Mahasangha Council participated in these talks.
When resolving the problems of any country, in order to have a sustainable and durable solution, such a solution should only be put forth taking into consideration the cultural and social background of that country. Thereby, no one can believe that a foreign creation that disregards all of these factors being implemented in our country will do any good. That is why the United Nations organization usually accepts that it is unsuitable to present and adopt country-specific resolutions. There is no doubt that there is no balance in this.
එක රටක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ විදිහට ක්‍රියා කිරීම හොඳ ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් නෙවෙයි කියලා. කාටවත් පේනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ කිසිම සැකයක් නැහැ. මේකේ තුලනයක් නැහැ.
මේ ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් මේ රට වෙනුවෙන් සියලු මහා සංඝරත්නය
We have arrived at a decision that it would be suitable on behalf of the people and the country to rally the Mahasangha and address another letter to Geneva, highlighting the situation in the country and the internal processes in the country. Once again, it would be good if this letter is expeditiously compiled and the signatures of all religious leaders obtained. I believe that if not, it will be suitable to obtain the signatures of the chief prelates and other respected individuals and submit this letter tomorrow.
අපේ මහානායක ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේලා ඇතුළේ වගකීම් අයගෙන් අස්සම් සහිතව මේ ලිපිය මම හිතනවා හෙටම පුළුවන් වුණොත් ඇරියොත් වඩාත් හොඳයි.
Meanwhile, protests against the resolution on Sri Lanka in Geneva took place today as well.
The demonstration took place at the center of the Galnava town. A correspondent in the area said that over 2,000 protesters were present. The protest was themed "Do not lay a hand on the unity of the nation," and the protesters took to the streets to voice their objection.
At a media briefing convened by the Centre for Policy Alternatives yesterday, the following views were expressed on misinformation surrounding the resolution on Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council.
We've been told by various people that the whole purpose of what is happening in Geneva is to change the government of the country, is to take the chief executive to the electric chair. Let me just clarify for a moment, as most of you will know, at the international level, there is no punishment of taking anyone to the electric chair. Secondly, of course, this is a resolution in the United Nations Human Rights Council. It is not mandatory, it's not compulsory in terms of compliance. The only United Nations institution or arm that can enforce anything is the Security Council. This Geneva 2014 throws us a challenge of more serious proportions than ever before. Either we recognize and step up to the plate and fulfill our duties and responsibilities as citizens yearning for a democratic Sri Lanka, or we just remain as subjects. So the darkness is descending in order to stifle civil society, stifle dissent, prevent that alternative narrative from getting out. Now we as civil society have to ask ourselves as to whether it is indeed match over, or are we going to continue to do what we do because it is important for this country that we do it.
The Christian Cooperation Foundation submitted a letter to the Ministry of Justice seeking the nullification of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. A number of civil activists campaigning for information on disappeared persons were also present at the occasion.
The group who staged a protest march to the Ministry of Justice engaged in a demonstration opposite the ministry, demanding the nullification of the Prevention of Terrorism Act owing to its inhumane nature.
There is no humane face to this act. When a person is arrested, lawyers are not permitted to meet with them. Parents are not permitted to meet with them. At the same time, when that person has fallen psychologically, no one can meet them to provide relief. There needs to be a humane face to this. We know that a mother and her 13-year-old daughter were arrested. Charges have been leveled even at this 13-year-old girl under the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
They were arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. If Vibhushika and Jaykumari could be arrested, then tomorrow even my children and I, who are searching for my husband, can be arrested under this Prevention of Terrorism Act.
සැමියා හොයන මාවත් මගේ දරුවනුත් මේ ත්‍රස්තවාද වැළැක්වීමේ පනත යටතේ ආණ්ඩුවට අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න පුළුවන්.
A reception to mark the National Day of Pakistan was held last evening in Colombo. Speaking at the occasion, Pakistan High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Major General Qasim Qureshi said that Sri Lanka should be given time to deal with anonymous challenges arising out of its long struggle against terrorism.
Former Sri Lankan President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and representatives from international missions in Sri Lanka were among those present at the occasion.
During the last 1 year, significant developments have taken place in Pakistan. A new democratically elected government is in power since May 2013. Its two main priorities include revival of the economy and elimination of terrorism. To deal with the problem of terrorism, the government is combining the use of force and negotiations. As regards foreign policy, our government is actively engaged with all neighboring countries in an effort to create a peaceful neighborhood. I also wish to reiterate that Pakistan supports the point of view that Sri Lanka should be assisted in its internal process and as well as given time to deal with the enormous challenges arising out of its long struggle against terrorism.
Following the establishment of the formal diplomatic relations in 1948, our ties have expanded into all fields encompassing relationship in political, economic, cultural and defense-related spheres. It is gratifying that at critical moments in our history of both countries, we have stood in solidarity with each other. The assistance provided by Pakistan in our fight against terrorism is deeply appreciated by the people and the government of Sri Lanka. The profound understanding with which Pakistan has approached the complex issues in post-conflict Sri Lanka is particularly heartwarming.
Welcome back to the news. Now, in spite of the Malaysian authorities' statement that flight MH370 ended over the Indian Ocean, what caused the flight to detour thousands of miles off course and head towards the open sea remains a mystery. A day after Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak said that the flight ended in the southern Indian Ocean, Malaysia Airlines confirmed the fate of MH370. Now, Newsfirst Shamir Rasuluddin has a comprehensive report.
The Malaysian Airlines officials and Australian officials addressed the media in two press conferences today. The media address comes after Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak concluded that MH370, which went off the radar 2 weeks ago, crashed into the Indian Ocean. Addressing the media, Chairman CEO of Malaysian Airlines said that this has been an unprecedented event followed by an unprecedented response. He further said that he does not want to speculate on what happened to MH370 and added that investigations are on and the focus now is on the families of those on board.
Investigation basically team that's being led by DCA. And yesterday when the Prime Minister made that statement, it's very evident that the aircraft ended its flight in the middle of South Indian Ocean. Okay, so we will have to be, we just have to follow those evidence as being presented to us. And what we did yesterday was to share that as quickly as possible to the next of kin. And will I resign? It's a personal, risky decision. We'll take it later.
Now, meanwhile, an Australian military official said that efforts to try to ID debris in the Indian Ocean are unlikely to start again for at least another 24 hours. The Australian Defence Minister said that as the Indian Ocean is an extremely remote part of the world, the Australian government cannot risk the life of pilots and crew engaged in the search operations.
Let's be clear. To this point in time, we have not successfully identified and recovered any debris from the aircraft in question. Well, when you've got to suspend operations for 24 hours because of the weather, these beautiful aircraft behind me are all on the ground, as you can see, because it's unsafe to fly down there. Now, remember, this part of the world, this Southern Ocean, has shipwrecked many sailors in our history in Western Australia. It is rough. Sea State 7, you know, there are 20, 30 metre waves. It is very dangerous, even for big Panamax class ships.
Scientists at a British satellite company have spent the past fortnight crunching vast amounts of data to provide the first solid information relating to the fate of the Boeing 777 and the 239 people on board. Inmarsat, which was set up 35 years ago as a non-profit organization to provide communications for shipping and has since become one of the world's largest satellite operators. Now, they revealed the grim conclusion of its calculations that the plane had plunged into the freezing waters of the Indian Ocean, some 1,500 miles, as you could see in this map, 1,500 miles southwest of Australia. Now, using data from pings sent by MH370 to a satellite after the plane lost contact on the 9th of March, the company had within 4 days that it had travelled along one of two vast arcs heading north across southern and central Asia, which was the northern corridor, and the southern corridor, which is south across a vast expanse of ocean. Since then, it has undertaken a groundbreaking exercise in analyzing data to refine that information to try to establish which of the two arcs MH370 travelled along and where its perplexing flight might have finally come to an end. Using a technique described by the Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak as never having been used before, the satellite company used the Droplet effect, the change in frequency of a transmission due to the movement of a satellite or aircraft, as a basis for a method of modelling the particular path of a jet. When this data was compared with data for the known paths of other aircraft, it formed the basis for establishing the likely route taken by MH370. The family members who have been anxious for news about their loved ones reacted to the news of the authorities.
We are just sitting in front of the embassy, and what we are aiming at is the Malaysian government. We don't want to... we're just waiting the negotiation between the Chinese government and the Malaysian government, because no evidence. They just give out the result from analysis from the satellite data, and nothing found.
All in all, the mystery of the missing Boeing 777-200 flight MH370 remains a mystery. Until authorities find the black box, no one would know what happened to flight MH370. There are many questions and less answers. Until concrete information on the missing plane comes to light, the fate of flight MH370 would remain a mystery. Shamir Rasuldeen, Newsfirst.
Moving on to local news, Elections Commissioner Mahinda Deshapriya informed the electronic and print media today to refrain from repeatedly airing or printing statements made by candidates who have changed their political parties. The communique issued by the Elections Commissioner states that such news reports are advantageous to some parties and harmful to others. Meanwhile, a number of female candidates are contesting the upcoming Western and Southern Provincial Council polls. Let's now have a listen to the voices of the female candidates on the election stage.
මම මේ සත්න ගෙනියනකොට
When I engaged in this struggle, many insulted me. Websites slung mud at me. They insulted a girl in every single way possible, even sexually. Assassination attempts were planned and divulged. I had all this in my mind, and yet I engaged in this journey. I was sure that one day I will receive love and strength from the people.
In a country where 50% of the population are women, only a simple 5% of women have come forward for the country. Why is this? Because the women are harassed, subject to male dominance, and forced to bear all the rapes and child molestations that take place. How can a woman with such a burden come forward and engage in politics?
ගැහණියකට උහුලාගෙන ඉන්න බැරි තරම් මට වද දුන්නා. ඒත් මම නෙවෙයි පසුබැස්සේ.
I was subject to harassment to a level that a woman cannot bear. But I never backed down. I gained courage and I did not cry. I answered all those who tried to attack me. I showed them the true strength of a woman from the south.
ඒ ගැහණියකගේ සැබෑ ශක්තිය දැකුනේ ගැහණියකගේ සැබෑ වීරත්වය තනි ගැහණියක් හැටියට මේ වෙනකොටත් මම පෙන්නලා ඉවරයි.
When we are working in the kitchen as women, we feel the hardships. This is felt by every woman in every household. They say that it is difficult to live and that if they eat in the morning, they wonder how they are going to eat at night. We cannot give our children some chicken if they want it.
I see a lot of work that is not being done. I believe you see it too. So you must elect to the provincial council people who can do more than those who were there.
Ayubowan, Salam alaikum, Vanakkam.
I must share with you something that Lord Buddha preached. There are three factors that no one can hide. One is the sun, second, the moon, and third, reality. My dear mothers and fathers, this is the reality. We must understand we have only one leader, and that leader is His Excellency President Mahinda Rajapaksa.
They are preparing to win this election by putting forward actors and actresses and famous personalities. But we say these actors and actresses have no political knowledge whatsoever. Although they come in vehicles and say hi, the people will not be deceived. If you think they are good, then we say, may the gods bless you.
The provincial council, which was labelled a white elephant in the past, has become a place where you can do something for the village. Today the provincial council does something for the village. It does something for the city. The provincial council is able to work in areas including development, education, health and roads.
In the meantime, Minister Mervyn Silva allocated a plot of land for his ashes to be interred following his death today.
The minister allocated a plot of land in the Borala General Cemetery in close proximity to the grave of the late H.R. Jyotipala. The group, including the Mahasangha, took part in the ceremony organised for this purpose.
I paid money and bought the site. They are building two sides to it. One side is for the people who scold me and the other is for the people who praise me.
Parliamentarian Sajid Premadasa says that the farmers, labourers and fishermen have been made to pay for shortcomings at schools. He made this statement at a public rally held in Hambantota yesterday.
An election rally was held in Hambantota last evening. MP Sajid Premadasa was the chief guest at the rally, which saw the participation of a large group including area residents, party supporters and local
Today, the Minister of Education trumpets that there hasn't been an era in the history of this country where free education has been strengthened as much as it has been in the present. I wish to ask Bandula Gunawardana whether he is being serious. Money is charged when you go to schools to get children enrolled. Money is charged for desks and benches. There are enrollment fees. All the shortcomings in the school have to be covered not by the Ministry of Education but by the innocent farmers, labourers and fishermen who send their children to school. My friends, I wish to ask why 417 schools have been closed in this country if our education is in fact as wondrous as they claim it is. Even the free lunch is provided to only 25% of students while the other 75% are cut off. Since 3 elephants who have made the Singharaja forest their abode stray into the Pannila Reserve on the forest borders from time to time, people living in the reserve are unsurprisingly fearful of inquiring into what goes on in Singharaja. The Pannila Reserve, which spans a massive area that comes under the purview of the Kalawana, Godakawela and Kahawatta Divisional Secretariats, is nourished by the Walawe Ganga, the Kalu Ganga and the Rakwana River. Drinking water projects which supply clean water to about 20,000 families in Kalawana, Godakawela and Kahawatta are dependent on freshwater springs in the Pannila Reserve. Since the Rakwana Potupitiya road runs along the boundary of the Pannila Reserve, those residing in the reserve have no cause to travel across the reserve to reach the towns of Rakwana, Kalawana, Godakawela or Kahawatta. As such, the only reason for a road to be constructed across the reserve would be if someone was taking up residence in the middle of the reserve or if there is a need to transport something out of the reserve. The sound we heard last Sunday when we entered the Pannila Reserve after turning off at the junction at the 4th kilometre post on the Rakwana Potupitiya road and the footage captured on our camera proves beyond a doubt that this road is being constructed for the transportation of material out of the reserve. According to the group who were clearing the forest reserve in broad daylight, the cutting down of trees in this reserve has been undertaken in accordance with a contract granted to a gem merchant. Since this is being undertaken by powerful businessmen, the area residents too do not come forward out of fear. I invite environmental organizations and civil society organizations in this country to give us the support and strength we need to seize the destruction of this forest and save Singharaja. Against a backdrop where a local ruling party politician has appealed for support in such a fashion, the public official who is responsible for the area where this destruction is taking place, the Divisional Secretary of Godakawela, says he is completely unaware of the construction of a road in this area and that no permits have been issued for the transportation of timber. Area residents shared their experiences with us on how the timber is transported out of the reserve. Last month, 3 lorries were loaded with timber and taken away by followers of this gem merchant. An officer of the police environment unit provided them with protection. They have taken away the best quality timber from the reserve. Is it the national responsibility of the Department of Forest Conservation to bow before timber racketeers? Minister of Environment and Renewable Energy, this is over to you.
Now moving on to business news, an audit of the first phase of the controversial Norachale coal power plant has commenced. Auditor General H.A. Samarveera said preliminary work on the audit has already been undertaken.
The Auditor General said that the primary aim of the audit is to inquire into documentation and purchases that were made during the construction of the first phase of the coal power plant. He said that the necessary information is being collated at present. It is expected that inquiries will also be made through this audit into the breakdowns experienced at the first phase of the Norachole power plant on several occasions in the recent past. The Auditor General noted that following the conclusion of the audit report will be presented to Parliament.
Newsfirst U reporter Dinesh Adhikari from Polgahawela filed this report today.
This is the bridge connecting Madalagama in Polgahawela and Yakalagala Vatta Road. Residents in the area, school children and 3-wheel drivers face many dangers as a result of the bridge being too narrow. They request that the relevant authorities renovate this bridge.
U reporter Dinesh Adhikari, Polgahawela.
Moving on to sports news, coming down heavily on BCCI President N. Srinivasan, the Indian Supreme Court asked him to step down for a free and fair probe in the betting and spot fixing scandal. The Indian Supreme Court has given 2 days for Srinivasan to step down.
The Supreme Court has asked N. Srinivasan to step down as BCCI president to ensure a fair probe of the Indian Premier League fixing and betting scandal. Court also said that it's nauseating that N. Srinivasan continued as BCCI chief and he should step down if cricket has to be cleaned. The Indian Supreme Court is now of the view that N. Srinivasan should step down before the Apex Court issues an order. Vice President of the BCCI, Ravi Savnath, has also said that they will operate in accordance to the instructions put down by the Supreme Court. The Indian Supreme is scheduled to take up the cases on allegations of betting and spot fixing in the IPL on Thursday.
In more cricket news, the West Indies are taking on host Bangladesh in the ICC World 2020 in Group 2, currently underway in Mirpur. Batting first, the lads from the Caribbean posted 171 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Opener Dwayne Smith top scored with 72 runs, while big hitting Chris Gill chipped in with 48. Aramin Hussain bagged 3 wickets for 31 runs.
He's looking very, very dangerous. Just 33 balls. Now that's a top hit. Somebody's got to catch it. Wicket keeper's going for it. So is the man on the edge of the circle.
Seeing the field.
Bangladesh got off to a shaky start, losing 3 early wickets. A short while ago, Bangladesh won 57 for the loss of 5 wickets.
Anything was very full. He dances down the wicket, and this could be a great catch. Dwight.
Oh, no, that's it. That is a brilliant. And I'm afraid that's the end of. Oh, he's knocked him out. Now you know why they keep picking.
And that's a wrap of your primetime news for tonight. Thank you for joining us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Nicola D'Zoiza.
And I'm Shan Jarangpati. Good night and take care.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.